The case file was reopened on a Tuesday morning because of a phone call nobody expected to receive. At 6:17 a.m., a clerk at the sheriff's office in Wayne County, Utah, transferred the call to Detective Aaron Vance after the caller repeatedly insisted he needed to speak to someone about a missing person report from 2015. The man sounded exhausted but calm. He gave a name that immediately froze the room. Ethan Mercer. 11 years earlier, Ethan Mercer had vanished while hiking alone through a remote section of the Dirty Devil River Canyon system west of Hanksville. Hundreds of volunteers, park rangers, sheriff's deputies, helicopters, dogs, and search teams had spent nearly 3 weeks looking for him. Nothing had been found except a backpack strap snagged on a juniper branch and a partial boot print near a dry wash. Eventually, the search ended. His family held a memorial service. His case became another unsolved disappearance buried in state archives. Yet now, someone claiming to be Ethan Mercer was calling from a gas station outside Green River, asking for a ride home. Detectives initially assumed it was a prank, until a deputy arrived at the location and found a man sitting beside an ice machine. The deputy later stated that before the man even spoke, he recognized him from old photographs. Ethan looked exactly 27 years old, the age he had been when he disappeared, not younger looking than expected, not unusually healthy, exactly the same. Same face, same haircut. Same faint scar beneath his right eye from a bicycle accident recorded in childhood medical records. He wore the same gray hiking shirt visible in the last photograph taken before his disappearance, the same faded cargo pants, the same boots. He carried a half-empty plastic water bottle manufactured by a company that had gone out of business nearly a decade earlier. When detectives interviewed him that afternoon, Ethan appeared confused by almost every question. He believed the year was 2015. He thought he had spent one uncomfortable night lost in the canyon after taking a wrong turn. He repeatedly asked why everyone seemed so emotional. He asked why his phone battery had died permanently. He asked why a deputy's uniform looked different. He asked why people kept staring at him. Then he asked a question that later became one of the most disturbing details in the entire investigation. He asked where the search helicopters had gone, because he had heard them all night long. According to official records, search helicopters had not entered the area until 36 hours after he disappeared. The interview continued for 6 hours. Ethan accurately identified childhood friends, family members, former co-workers, and obscure personal details nobody outside his life could have known. Fingerprints matched. Dental records matched. DNA matched. Every scientific test confirmed he was Ethan Mercer, yet every calendar in America insisted he had been missing for 11 years. News of his return exploded nationally within days. Reporters descended on Hanksville. Amateur investigators dissected every public statement. Internet forums filled with theories ranging from government experiments to witness protection programs. Most experts assumed there had to be a mundane explanation. Perhaps he suffered a psychological break and lived under another identity. Perhaps he had been held captive somewhere. Yet investigators quickly encountered a problem. There was absolutely no evidence Ethan had existed anywhere during those 11 years. No employment records, no bank activity, no medical history, no surveillance footage, no arrest records, no social security activity, no utility accounts, no digital footprint. It was as if he had simply vanished from reality and reappeared unchanged. Detective Vance was assigned to reconstruct Ethan's last known movements. He expected to find overlooked clues from the original search. Instead, he uncovered details that had never been released publicly. On the morning Ethan disappeared, he signed a trail register at a remote access point near Robbers Roost Country. 3 hikers signed below him later that day. During interviews conducted years earlier, those hikers reported seeing Ethan standing motionless on a sandstone ridge around sunset. One witness stated he appeared to be watching something in a side canyon through binoculars. Another claimed Ethan ignored repeated greetings. The statements were considered irrelevant because lost hikers often behave strangely under stress. However, When Vance reviewed the notes after Ethan's return, he noticed something peculiar. All three witnesses independently mentioned seeing lights in the canyon below Ethan. Not flashlights, not campfires. Small white lights moving silently through terrain where no roads existed. Search coordinators had dismissed the reports because no physical evidence supported them. Vance decided to revisit the area with Ethan present. Initially, Ethan resisted. He insisted he had already explained everything. According to him, he became disoriented near dusk, followed what he believed was a drainage route back toward the trailhead, and entered a narrow canyon. Night fell unexpectedly fast. He found a sheltered alcove and slept. When he woke up, he walked several hours until reaching a road. Simple, except roads had changed, buildings had changed, 11 years had passed. Eventually, Ethan agreed to return. In September, investigators, geologists, search specialists, and federal land managers accompanied him into the canyon. Body cameras recorded everything. The first strange moment occurred less than 2 miles into the hike. Ethan identified landmarks that no longer existed. He pointed toward a cottonwood tree supposedly growing beside a wash. The tree had died years earlier. He described a rock formation that had collapsed sometime after 2018. He mentioned the rusted cattle fence removed in 2019. Nobody told him those dates. Yet later records confirmed each detail. As the group continued deeper into the canyon system, Ethan became increasingly uneasy. Several times he stopped speaking altogether. Around midday, he reached a narrow side canyon and immediately froze. Witnesses later described his reaction as genuine panic. He insisted this was where he spent the night. Investigators examined the alcove he identified. At first, nothing appeared unusual. Then one of the geologists noticed scratch marks on the sandstone wall. The markings were approximately chest height and partially concealed beneath mineral deposits. High-resolution photography revealed a series of vertical tally marks, grouped in sets of 5. There were hundreds of them. The markings stretched nearly 20 feet across the alcove wall. If each tally represented a day, someone had counted time there for years. Ethan stared at the marks for several minutes before quietly stating he had never seen them before. The discovery transformed the investigation. Samples were collected. Dating analysis later suggested many scratches were significantly older than 11 years, while others appeared relatively recent. There was no clear pattern. More unsettling was the location itself. Search records from 2015 confirmed teams had examined the alcove multiple times. The tally marks were absent in photographs taken during the original search. Someone, or something, had created them afterward. As investigators expanded their survey, additional anomalies emerged. Less than half a mile from the alcove, ground-penetrating radar identified a buried metallic object beneath several feet of sediment. Excavation revealed an emergency locator beacon model manufactured in 2021. The battery was dead. The casing was damaged. Serial numbers traced ownership to a Colorado backpacker who disappeared in Arizona 3 years earlier. His body had never been found. Nearby investigators recovered fragments from equipment linked to 2 other missing persons cases occurring hundreds of miles apart. None of the items should have been there. Federal agencies became involved. Public access to portions of the canyon was temporarily restricted. Officially, the closure was attributed to environmental studies. Unofficially, nobody wanted reporters discovering what investigators continued finding. Over the following months, teams documented personal belongings connected to at least 7 unresolved disappearances across 4 states. Watches, water filters, tent stakes, a camera memory card. Every item belonged to someone who vanished in remote wilderness areas between 2011 and 2024. Yet all objects were concentrated within a surprisingly small geographic zone surrounding the alcove Ethan identified. Then investigators found the notebook. It was sealed inside a waterproof pouch lodged beneath a sandstone shelf. The owner was identified as a missing geology graduate student named Rebecca Hale, who vanished in Nevada in 2022. Most pages were destroyed. Several entries remained readable. One passage changed the entire direction of the case. Rebecca described hearing voices in the canyon at night, despite camping alone. She initially believed nearby hikers were talking. Later she realized the voices were repeating conversations she had already had earlier that day. Another entry described distant helicopter sounds, despite clear skies and no aircraft activity. The final legible note consisted of one sentence written repeatedly across multiple pages. They keep walking out, but nobody walks in. Investigators initially interpreted the statement as psychological deterioration. Then Detective Vance noticed a contradiction hidden within historical records. Every disappearance connected to recovered items involved individuals last seen entering isolated terrain alone. Yet several unrelated witnesses over the years had reported encountering unfamiliar hikers emerging from remote canyon areas where no established routes existed. Most reports were ignored because the individuals were never identified. Vance tracked down as many witnesses as possible. A retired river guide remembered helping a confused man near Hike Crossing in 2018. The man claimed he had been hiking for 2 days and seemed shocked by current events. Before authorities could interview him, he disappeared again. Another witness described meeting a woman in 2020 who asked whether a recent presidential election had happened yet. She appeared disoriented and vanished before police arrived. Neither encounter received serious attention at the time. Patterns emerged. The stories shared remarkable similarities: confusion regarding dates, outdated clothing, minor injuries inconsistent with extended survival, references to hearing helicopters or voices. Most importantly, every encounter occurred within 200 miles of the same canyon network where Ethan Morgan, Commerce Agent SHHAS, disappeared. Public pressure intensified once portions of the investigation leaked. Federal officials denied rumors of secret facilities. Geologists rejected theories involving unusual magnetic phenomena. Psychologists offered explanations involving memory disorders and mistaken identity. Yet none could explain why multiple missing person artifacts from different years appeared together in one inaccessible location. The turning point arrived when analysts finally extracted partial data from Rebecca Hale's damaged camera card. Thousands of files were corrupted. One video survived. It lasted only 43 seconds. The footage showed Rebecca standing inside a narrow canyon after dark. She whispered that she could hear people nearby. The camera turned toward a sandstone wall. Several distant voices became audible. Investigators enhanced the audio repeatedly. What emerged stunned everyone involved. Among the overlapping voices was Ethan Mercer, speaking about trail conditions. The conversation matched statements he made during an interview recorded 2 days before his disappearance in 2015. Rebecca vanished 7 years later. Somehow his voice appeared in her recording. The footage was never publicly released, though its existence eventually leaked. By then, Ethan's behavior had begun changing. He became obsessed with obtaining investigation files. He repeatedly requested maps of the canyon. Family members reported he spent hours staring at old photographs. One evening, he disappeared from his parents' home without warning. Authorities located him 3 days later, parked beside a dirt access road leading back toward the restricted search area. He claimed he was simply driving. GPS data showed he had remained stationary for nearly 12 hours, staring into the desert. During a follow-up interview, Ethan revealed something he had concealed since his return. The night he became lost, he heard voices, not mysterious whispers, ordinary conversations. He believed other hikers were camped nearby. As he followed the sounds deeper into the canyon, he encountered a narrow passage between sandstone walls. Beyond it, he saw lights moving among the rocks. People appeared to be walking through the darkness carrying flashlights. When he called out, nobody answered. He remembered stepping toward them. After that, his memory ended. The admission triggered a final expedition. Against recommendations from several agencies, a small team including Vance, Ethan, federal investigators, and technical specialists returned to the canyon carrying extensive recording equipment. Their objective was simple: document everything, and determine whether any environmental factor could explain recurring reports. For 2 days, nothing unusual occurred. On the third night, shortly after midnight, multiple audio recorders captured distant human voices. Team members initially assumed sounds were echoing from another campsite. Thermal imaging revealed no nearby individuals. The voices grew clearer. Several investigators later testified they recognized fragments of their own conversations from earlier in the expedition. One technician heard himself discussing battery levels approximately 6 hours before. Another heard Vance giving directions from that morning. Recordings confirmed these accounts. Audio files contained conversations before they happened and after they happened, layered together in impossible sequences. Then came the event that remains classified in several official reports. At 1:43 a.m., a motion-activated camera positioned near the alcove recorded a figure walking across the canyon floor. The person appeared male, mid-20s, hiking clothes, carrying a water bottle. Facial analysis identified him as Ethan Mercer. Simultaneously, Ethan Mercer was standing beside investigators nearly 300 yards away. The camera footage showed the unidentified figure approaching the narrow passage Ethan described years earlier. He paused, looked directly toward the camera, and disappeared behind a sandstone outcrop. Search teams reached the location less than 2 minutes later. Nobody was there. No tracks, no equipment, nothing. The next morning, federal supervisors terminated field operations. Equipment was seized. Access restrictions expanded. Public statements emphasized geological hazards. Ethan was instructed not to discuss ongoing investigations. For several months, he complied. Then, during an unscheduled interview with a local journalist, he made one final comment before ending the conversation. He said the man in the camera was not a stranger. He said it was him. On the night he vanished, he claimed he finally recognized the expression on the figure's face. According to Ethan, that was the exact moment he first heard the voices and saw the lights. The exact moment he stepped toward the narrow passage. The exact moment everything disappeared. 3 weeks later, Ethan Mercer vanished again. His vehicle was discovered abandoned near a closed trailhead outside the restricted zone. Search teams found no sign of him. No footprints, no camp, no body. Nothing. The investigation remains open. Every few years, another report surfaces from hikers who encounter confused individuals emerging from isolated canyon country, asking what year it is. Most are dismissed, some are never identified. What keeps Detective Vance awake, even after retirement, is a detail buried deep within evidence logs. During the final expedition, one recorder captured a voice that investigators did not recognize at the time. The sentence was faint, partially obscured by wind, and spoken only once. Audio specialists enhanced it years later. The voice belonged to Ethan Mercer. The timestamp showed it was recorded several hours before he disappeared the second time. The message contains 7 words. Tell them I've been here 11 years. The problem is that Ethan was standing beside the recorder when those words were captured, and according to everyone present, he never said them.